Show yourself, king.
Here, Raziel. One must keep his friends close, Raziel, and his enemies even closer.
Welcome, time-span soul.
I should kill you where you stand.
Kain's very existence is a cancer upon this world. As long as he lives, all of Nosgoth is in peril.
I intend to discover the truth behind all of this.
We both want Kain dead.
If any game's deserving of a sequel, it's the original Soul Reaver. The ending basically showed the game's main villain, Kain, running off into a time portal with the hero, Raziel, following him, leaving you with basically no closure whatsoever to Soul Reaver's storyline. As expected, Crystal Dynamics and Eidos announced a sequel shortly after the release of Soul Reaver, which pleased a lot of fans because a lot of them wanted to have closure to the storyline. They wanted to find out what happens to Kain, what happens to Raziel, and the sequel is basically supposed to tie up any loose ends as well as explore new avenues into the storyline of Nosgoth, its past, and kind of just its rich heritage. So the storyline once again follows Raziel as he pursues Kain through the time portal. Much like the first game though, he's pulled out of this like vortex by a wizard named Mobius, who's basically a human wizard that's able to manipulate time. He basically tells Raziel once again that he should go after Kain and he should kill him before Kain causes this horrible catastrophe to hit Nosgoth. In the first game, you're in the Nosgoth in which Kain had already taken over and basically just deprived the land of all of its life. Everything is just really barren. But in Soul Reaver 2, you're actually in the Nosgoth of the past, so the landscape is just really rich and vivid. There's all kinds of life. There's also humans walking around as opposed to the monstrosities you saw in the original Soul Reaver, which were variations on the whole vampire gothic theme. When you walk out of the first stronghold, you're basically bombarded with just this huge environment with all kinds of trees, bushes, really just lush scenery. And there's even this multi-tiered waterfall off in the distance that basically looks like the abyss from the first game, but again, it's water, so everything has this real natural feeling. You don't get the sense that Nosgoth has been taken over yet or that Kain has done any damage. Even the indoor environments have received kind of a boost in detail. You'll notice that a lot of the rooms are much bigger and there's just a lot more objects in them. Even some of them even use special effects like ground fog just to enhance the environment, kind of pull you closer into the game. Crystal Dynamics has made two major changes to the gameplay, the most obvious of which is how the Soul Reaver actually interacts with Raziel. In the first game, you could basically swing the Soul Reaver around, it wouldn't do anything, it was just a primary weapon. But now, kind of just to limit the way you use it, there's a meter that appears in the bottom right hand of the screen that'll fill up when you start to use the Soul Reaver. If you use it too much, the meter will fill up and it'll eventually start draining Raziel's life away. The second you stop swinging it around, the meter will go back down and Raziel won't lose any more of his life. It's sort of an interesting gameplay dynamic because it prevents you from using basically the most powerful melee weapon early on in the game, just using it whenever you feel like it. It also gives the human weapons a little bit more value because the Soul Reaver can also take away souls that Raziel would normally use to replenish his health. The other difference in gameplay is that Crystal Dynamics basically got rid of the whole glyph system, which basically gave Raziel special powers in the original game. What they replaced it with is a system where you're able to imbue the Soul Reaver with special powers. For example, if you imbue it with black, you'll be able to cast like a stairway or a bridge made out of shadows, which you can then use to get to places that you wouldn't have normally been able to get to in the first place. A lot of the puzzles in the game are basically the same as the puzzles in the first Soul Reaver. They require that you know what levels look like in both the spectral realm and just the mortal realm, because there's changes when you shift between the two. Anyone familiar with the combat system in the original game should be able to jump into Soul Reaver 2's combat system right away. Raziel can basically wield any weapon on the walls or any weapon that he picks up from a human. He can also use his claws. And there's a really helpful lock-on system where you can make Raziel automatically face any enemies in the area and just basically click away on the mouse or the keyboard, and he'll automatically swing in that direction. Soul Reaver 2 features a lot of improvements over the original game. I mean, most obvious is the graphics, which look much more complex. The character models have more polygons, the environments have more polygons, there's more objects. The gameplay has largely remained the same. I mean, there's the two differences that we talked about earlier with the Soul Reaver's powers and the way it depletes your health. But generally, most of the puzzles you'll find were puzzles that were the same type of puzzles that were in the original Soul Reaver, and the combat's basically the same as it was in the original Soul Reaver as well. It's scheduled for release at the end of November.